When then we get there, put a thumbs up or a thumbs
Oh, actually, I don't have the same dialogue as I have upstairs.
So you can't tell?
I can't see that
So
info,
we know Sue and Dave.
and I don't
Okay.
want to experiment at this point.
2, 4,
But we're live
6,
now,
8,
so no
10.
stealing glances at yourself. It's about a 4-second delay.
3, 5, 7, 8, 2, 8. Oh, we don't have. But the theme is you love it.
I'm not there yet. I'm still in sleep mode. I don't know if I have to rewind a day or fast forward 6. I don't know if I go with backwards. Are we there yet? Are we at Shabbat? Are you Ryan? Okay. Then I'll catch up with you. We need that. Larry, could you bring the book then and bring us? Helena, take us away. Page 3. Whichever's reading speaks to you.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in me, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Amen. Amen.
Good Shabbat. Shabbat shalom. Goodness. Please join me on page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzav b'nu. Shabbat Kodsho, V'achava Uvratzon, in Chavtonu,
Zikaron Lamase Bereshi Kiyom Teila Lemikrai Kodesh Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim Kimanu Vacharta Yotanu Kidashta Mikol Hanim V'Shabbat Kodshecha V'Ahava Uvratzon Imchaltanu Baruch Atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
Page 24, we allow those angels to escort our second soul. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Aleichem Yom. Melech Malachei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch HaShem, Malachei HaSharet, Aleichem We're a small group. That doesn't mean we. I love that we girls and the boys isolate each other. Like so
It's
much
so
for
natural,
integration. What's going on? I don't know. Thank goodness we put Ben over on this side. But does anybody know Bryce? Bryce, wave. Bryce, do you know everybody? You know Seth, right? You know Larry and Beth and
Yes,
Judy.
yeah.
Good. All right. As long as we all know each other. This is good. Because we can't really pray in such a small group unless we know each other. That's got to start with at least neighbors. So we're going to put our finger in page 44 and sing for joy that Yisrael mashup on page 13. Smith, Hashamai, Smith, Hashamai, Smith, Hashamai, Betagel Let's do that again. That's so sweet. Smith, Hashamai, Smith, Hashamai, Smith, Hashamai, Betagel Shomrei, 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 Shabbat, Onei, Shabbat,
Shabbat Bekore, Oneg Shabbat Yismelu, Malakutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Bekore, Oneg Shabbat. Ratzitabo, Bekidash, Shabbat. Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Bekore, Oneg Shabbat Yismelu, Malakutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Bekore, Oneg Shabbat. Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Bekore, Oneg Shabbat Yismelu, Malakutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Oneg
We sing something new, something sweet. Shabbat, the song for Shabbat 22. It's for Shir, the Yom Shabbat, Leodot, Adonai. Well, it's a mere Shikah Elyon, it's a mere Shikah Elyon. It's for Shir, the Yom Shabbat, Leodot, Adonai. It's a mere Shikah Elyon, it's a mere Shikah Elyon. It's for Shir, the Yom Shabbat, Levodot, Adonai. It's a mere Shikah Elyon, it's a mere Shikah Elyon. He's in a time, Adonai, for that time. B'maaseh yadecha Page 20. Welcome, beloved. Lato di
Shabbat Kamela, Echadodili Rakala, Shabbat Kamela, Echadodili Rakala, Shabbat Kamela, Echadodili Rakala, Shabbat Kamela. Amor is a forty for and
So and Dave, we thank you. And we count you. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nitbarach b'hari 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 b'hari.
All mitzvotai, item kedoshim leroechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, להיות לכם Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Love your God with every heartbeat, every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work. When you are tired, when you are rested, let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They're reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. And that not all this we hold to be true and trustworthy. You alone are God, and we are Israel, your people. We accept your sovereignty, Malchut. Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sing to you together, lifting their voices joyously, as we do now. Those same words they sang, we sing on page 40. Mikama. Standing among us, let peace and friendships be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. As we pray and understanding among us. Peace and friendship be our shelter. Let there be love private time. Reflection. We start together, as we did. Children of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. But as they did, so do we have our own relationship in time.
Adonai Sifatakita Ufia Giti Latefa. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. El Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanura, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol. Zocher Haser Avot Imavot, Maybe Geulah B'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Ve'ah. Beth-El Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Be'ezras Sarah. Atah Gibor Elam L'Olam, Efayeh Hakol Atara V'Moshiach, Mori Atah. Nechatel Chayim B'Chesed, Nechayem Hakol B'Rachamim Rabim. Somech Noflim V'Rofech Olim, U'Matir Asurim. U'Mekayem Emunato Mishenei Afar. Michamocha B'Gvurot, U'Mito Me'ela. Melech B'nit U'Mechayeh, U'Matzliach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah le'Hachayot Hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Nechayeh Hakol. Atah kadosh v'shivcha kadosh, kadoshim lebo yom yahadu asenha. Baruch atah Adonai, El HaKadosh.
We continue private.
Shalom Aleinu Be'ato Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu Be'ato Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu Be'ato Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom. Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Be'ato Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Be'ato Yisrael. Healing and all these things. Some more than others, some really need it. Too many people who are hurting. Healing body and spirit. Here, Afghanistan, Florida. Spreading wide. Age 253. Be the source of strength. Bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. This week we're especially holding in our hearts Millie Rottenberg, Simon, Gittel Bakana, Bernice Courtney, Rachel Batibudi Sharon, Florence Wellen, Beryl, and Sima Bishwale, Ephraim Andrade, Nikita Chitanda, Laura Bat Yocheved, Shalom Avram Ben Golovich Shiach, Cupid, Michael Rosenblum, Deanna Ray Babcock, Leonard Kemner, Maurice Stearns, Brian Clark, Rita Ruffin, Lori S., Harav Miriam Yael Mansara Ben Yitzhak, Menachem Mendel Ben Yehudi Michael, Maxwell Swain, Tovia Ben Bela, Dwayne Charleston, Richard Foran, Sandra Mayer Chaikin, Joanna Tartikoff, Peter Ratzlaff, and to these names.
Iris Horowitz.
Those in need of healing, with renewal, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Shalom. Down here in how long? 2 days. Yeah.
I'm gonna love it even more once we renovate. So it's kind of amazing how the fallout from the Shoah, how the Holocaust continues, even though the camps were liberated 76 years ago, in so many ways as a people and individually. We still very powerfully feel the reverberations. You can't have that kind of breach and not have it reverberate through time and space. We feel the pain, we feel the trauma, the fallout. But every once in a while, we find stories that actually lighten our hearts. And I don't know if you guys keep an eye on the Washington Post, but I found this one in the Washington Post this week. It seems that a father and son in Oberdorf, Bopfingen, Germany, in 1990, they were renovating the home that they'd just bought when they came across something very unusual. A chest hidden behind a double wall in an attic. Tucked inside the chest was this really large, gilded Jewish Bible that looked like it had been very carefully placed there. It was heavy, about 22 pounds, almost 30 inches long and 3 inches thick. The words, der Heilige Schriften der Israeliten, I can't say that very well, but it's German better. The Holy Scriptures of the Israelites were embossed on the front. It seemed valuable and important, and the son held onto it for nearly 30 years. But in April of 2017, he decided to sell it on eBay to an art historian. $75. The Bible, it turned out, was part of the legacy of Edward and Ernestine Leiter, a Jewish couple from Stuttgart who were killed by the Nazis during the Holocaust. According to the United States Holocaust Museum in Washington, the Leiter's story was a common and tragic one. The Nazis forced them to move to Oberdorf-Bopfingen to live with 7 other Jewish families in August of 1942. And then the Germans sent the couples to Theresienstadt, a ghetto and a concentration camp outside of Prague. But before the Leiters left that home in Oberdorf, they hid all their valuables and personal items, including their jewelry, some letters, and an 1874 edition of the Jewish Bible in hopes of returning and retrieving their keepsakes. They never returned. The Leiters were sent to Treblinka, the infamous Nazi extermination camp in Poland, where an estimated 925,000 Jews were killed, in addition to Poles, Roma, and Soviet prisoners of war. The Leiter's son, Sally, was the lone survivor in the family. And that's when this story becomes remarkable. Sally's descendants, we don't know that much about him. They came to possess his parents' Bible. It landed just this summer on their doorsteps. For 50 years, the Leiter's heirlooms were left in Germany, hidden in that attic of that home, only to be discovered during the 1990 renovation. And when the Bible went up on eBay, it caught the eye of an artist and art historian, Gerhard Reusse, because he believed it had historical significance. It contained illustrations from Gustave Doré, one of the most prolific and successful book illustrators of the late 19th century. And Reusse donated it to a local synagogue, close to the house where it was found, so it could be preserved and protected. And then the search began to reunite the artifact with its intended owners. It took nearly 4 years, but in February, a man in Europe working on behalf of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum heard about this Bible. And word of it soon reached Joellen Decker, a research and reference librarian at the museum. And it became her mission to find out what happened to the descendants of the Bible and return the sacred text to its rightful lineage. Now, the museum regularly helps people figure out what happened to their ancestors during the Holocaust, but finding an item to repatriate to living descendants is almost unheard of, Decker said. Many books were burned or repurposed by the Nazis at the time, but luckily for Decker, there was a clue inside the Bible. A small postcard that confirmed that Edward Leiter was the owner. She said she didn't have high expectations of finding living relatives of the Leiters. During the Holocaust, entire Jewish families were murdered, Decker said. So the thought of finding someone alive today that would be related to someone who was killed in Treblinka, pretty unusual. But Decker started digging through every archive and search engine she could, and she found that Solly, the lone Leiter who survived the Holocaust, had changed his name to Charles and moved to the United States. Charles had a son named Max, who died and was featured in an obituary in the New York Times in 2008. And Max had 2 children and 3 grandchildren. And Decker was hopeful that she could track down. She found one of the grandchildren, Jacob Leiter, on LinkedIn, and immediately wrote a message explaining why she was trying to reach him and began, quote, "I apologize for the out-of-the-blue correspondence." Well, at his home on Long Island, Jacob Leiter opened his inbox on LinkedIn, and he was used to getting messages from recruiters and other contacts, but this note was different. He recognized the names of his grandfather and great-grandfather on the screen. It looked legitimate, so he messaged back Decker for more information. And then he called his grandmother, Susie Casper Leiter, who herself was a child of a Holocaust survivor. She was a child Holocaust survivor. At first, I was kind of shocked, said Jacob Leiter, who's now 27, about the Bible. We really didn't speak too much about my great-grandparents. But over the next 4 months, Jacob Leiter talked with Decker and the caretakers of the Bible in Germany. And he learned more about his great-great-grandparents' history for the first time. So did his grandmother. They both knew a bit about Edward and Ernestine, but it was the first time they heard such a full account. The letters accompanying the Bible inside the chest were discarded long ago, and it's unclear what happened to the jewelry, Jacob Leiter said. And it came time to figure out how to return the keepsake to the Leiter family in New York City. If it was sent through the mail, there was a chance it would get lost on its way, so it would have to be sent with a person. And international travel was complicated because of the pandemic. Staff from the German synagogue identified someone who could potentially make the journey with the Bible, a man named Steve Diarmid, who knew someone at the synagogue and often traveled to the United States. He agreed to transport it to the United States in June and delivered it to Jacob Leiter and his grandmother at her apartment in Manhattan. He was stunned by both its beauty and its large size. And as she held it, Susie Casper Leiter thought of her husband Max, who would have felt enormously honored to see it in person. But as a Holocaust survivor herself, she said having an artifact from generations ago in her hands was simply stunning. I just think that with all of the terrible terror and inhumanities in this world, I can't believe that I have such pleasure and such magic that I should live to see something that remains of the Holocaust that is good. And that's this Bible, said Casper Leiter, who is now 94. There's nothing else good to remain. And for Jacob Leiter, holding that Bible that once was in his great-great-grandfather's hands was an incredible feeling. But it was especially meaningful to go through the process with his grandmother. I kept saying throughout the whole process how lucky I am that I have my grandmother to experience this with, Jacob said. Just doing this in its entirety with her is something I'll remember forever. If you get a chance, do look up the article online. Again, it's in the Washington Post. There are loads of photographs of this young man, of the synagogue in Germany, of this huge Bible, of he and his grandmother looking through these pictures together. And you can tell this has history. This got me thinking, I mean, you'll feel it. I mean, you will just feel it in your body. I don't know, this story did the same for me. But this got me thinking about all the things that we have in our families, in our homes, that we have from previous generations in our family. What gets passed down, what gets kept. What are the stories that we tell along with them? I know my husband Steve, he's got a family Bible. His mother's side of the family actually came over on the Mayflower, literally. He's from on that lineage. There's a conversion in there somewhere along the way, obviously. But he's got a family Bible from the 1800s, and in that family Bible, they wrote down the name of every child born to the family, and then at what day. I got a samovar in my house that I know came from my grandfather's side of the family. And the story that I have of my grandfather and my grandmother is that they would drink tea all the time, but they would hold cubes of sugar between their teeth and sip it. Now, I never met either my grandmother or my grandfather, but I have this vivid image of the two of them sitting at a table with cubes of sugar sipping tea, and it just brings a smile to my face. I got my father's judicial robes. I was ordained in those robes. I had his gavel. And every time I look at that gavel, I imagine him. I don't have to imagine it. I just remember him holding court. Because no matter where he was, he held court. At home, at dinner, the court, it didn't matter. He held court. I had my Aunt Laura's recipes for Passover brownies written out in her longhand, and that brings me back to her seders every year in her little Brooklyn apartment. Fabulous cooking and our wonderful, beautiful love for each other. I have the wedding rings that my mother and my grandmother received on their wedding day. And I think about the hope they had for their future. One of them exchanged in the year 1902. And I wonder what the world was like for them on their wedding days. We're getting ready to move. Please God. So of course we're thinking about what we're going to take and what we're not going to take. If our kids are ready to be the next generation of caretakers of some of these precious heirlooms. And I think about the people who are fleeing their homes in places like Afghanistan and Syria, like this family did in Germany almost 80 years ago. And what are they taking with them? That's precious. What are they leaving behind? Will they ever be reunited? Those things. So I'm actually hoping that we can share a little, two sides of the room maybe. And I'd love for you all to share, is there something that's been passed down to you that you could talk about? Is there a story that comes with it? What do you have? Whether it's from another generation or not, that's precious. So, talk amongst yourselves.
She listed all those things. I think of all the opportunities
Yeah, small
I
groups.
wasted not saving precious little artifacts like that.
You have London, right?
Yeah.
Does he have stuff too?
Yeah, there was like a
Because he has kids.
Right, so
Sometimes
he
when you have
has,
Yeah, and it's
family.
yeah, he has.
I guess I'll try to find a husband or
He already,
that's a weird
mom's
thing
kid
that
and
I
kids
know.
of now.
Yes, so long. Yeah, but it's.
I didn't think of posterity.
I mean, it's easy for me to say, right? Because I do have some.
But, you know, she mentions like recipes. If I call out mom's recipes, you know,
You would have to fill a whole apartment with
so
those.
that would have been fun. Really would. Yeah, I appreciate it.
There's one recipe my cousin kept asking if I had, which I wish I could. My grandmother used to make these cheese cookies. It seemed we don't have it, but my family lost everything about that. So my mom told me that she had some sterling silver something stuff and she threw it away when she left Belgium to come here or something, you know. So for the most part, you know, things were lost because of the Nazis. On my mom's side and my father's side was also, his parents were immigrants. He was first generation. So there was absolutely nothing there. So my family, like, it's whatever I have is like one generation, you know, for the most part. Except the stories. Like some stories that go back. Go back. Go back. Stories are good. You probably have stories.
You know, she had me thinking about, you know, holidays when I was younger and the family was big and all that. Lots and lots of cousins and
Yeah.
aunts and uncles. I remember that was beautiful. Unfortunately, the family has spread itself out across the East Coast. Memories of this anecdotes.
I had some seaweed snacks from before I left in Israel. Left in my apartment. I think they're still good. I got those fresh packages.
We've got enough preservatives in it that
No,
lasts forever.
I have my grandfather's growing up. And before I left, my mom gave me
My grandpa.
his father. He was from England, and he had like an English one of the pocket watches. And like that opens up, and it's like you can blind it. I had to get fixed, but it's still like.
Sure.
Still more British than Jewish.
Smith.
You know, wherever we
My
live,
dad had some relatives from
we
Scotland.
integrated the
Came to
culture
visit.
around us. The
Yeah.
culture, the cooking,
Came over and
dress,
Elizabeth
speech.
with two Rolls Royces.
It's just,
And
that's
they drove into
the way
Brooklyn
we've done
to
it from the
visit
very
their
beginning.
American cousins. And my parents were getting married, so they gave them this sterling silver sugar bowl. It's got a certificate that says it was made by the royal silversmith. And, painting to anyway. From the legend.
Think about it. You're
Try
trying.
yours.
Finnish cup that came over from Russia. That's nice.
Think about where it is we take.
This was my
I think about that
grandmother's
trunk, you know, it's probably.
I don't know.
We're
Mom-
not, you know.
So I
she brought
got it
us
when my
the-
mom died.
she
My
fit.
mom wasn't wearing it. But I don't know where my grandmother got it. It's my grandmother's yard site this week. So
So,
I think I have to go
besides
back.
the fact that this story really touched me, it also occurs to me that these days of the Yamin Noraim, the holy days that are before us, they call us to honor our ancestors' memories. Indeed, Rosh Hashanah is called Yom HaZikaron, which means the day of remembrance. And of course, we remember them on Rosh Hashanah, especially on Yom Kippur at Kippur. The part of our Elul work, that's the month that we're in now, the Cheshbon HaNefesh work, is the accounting of the soul that asks us to check in with who we are. And if we live the lives, and if we live the Jewish values and the traditions that have been with us for so many generations, more than we can count. We think about them and their values, and we ask what was important to them. What would they have wanted for us? What's their legacy for us, and even for our children? Food for thought as we approach Rosh Hashanah. Shabbat Shalom. Continue with Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'kol, Aleinu am yotzei bereshit, shelo asanu k'yoyei ha'atzot, elo samanu k'mishmor ha'adam, shelo samu Elokeinu ka'el, v'kol aleinu Yehovah Hamonah, אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני אלה מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love. Corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness. And superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the words of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever Speaking of honoring our ancestors, we do so now with the mourners Kaddish. And somebody's memory has come to mind, somebody you want to call out loud, just to offer some praise in their name, even if it's not their yard site, they're not in mourning. I invite you to do so. In addition to being in Shloshim for David Schnur, Lisa Shuckman, and observing the yard site, Eleanor Bauer, Marcel Mordecai Gutman, Rosa Halpern Heller Lefkowitz, Eleanor Meyerson, Lionel Carnes, Philip Weiner. Yes, come to mind if you want to honor.
Since we were talking about my grandparents, Jean and Samuel Brown.
And my brother, he's so sweet, so hard to live with her whole life. Her name is Eva. Hava.
My grandmother is her yard site this week. You said her name for me, thank you. Rosa.
Rosa, also Rosa's named after her.
And her first husband was killed by the Nazis. She lost one son who died in Auschwitz. So your sermon touched me because that's my story. They took it all away from us. I don't have any samovars or anything. All the way. But my grandmother was an incredible woman. She was one of the only girl with 7 brothers or something like that. And her mother wouldn't let her in the kitchen because she was not good with kashrut. She was always getting in trouble. And she opened these smoked cigarettes in the street. She was a real feminist. So she came here and had a shit off and was able to stay. That's why she has a few last names there. She was a pretty strong woman.
Legal Friedman. If it's your custom or you would like to rise in honor of those for whom you say Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal Yitgadash Shnei Rabbah Ve'alma Divrach Hirutei Ve'amrit Malchutei L'chayei Chom V'yomei Chom L'chayei Devot Beit Yisrael V'agalah U'bizman Kariv Ve'yiru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Olamei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei V'kusha B'rifu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbachata V'nechemata Da'amiran Be'alam V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu Ve'al Yisrael Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mrama U'yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Yisrael Imru Amen.
Their memories always be for the same. Anybody have any good news? Good and welfare? What do we make announcements?
My daughter got 100 on her math content.
Fine.
She had two summer class, something called linear algebra or something far finely. I don't know.
Good for her.
She got 100.
Yay.
At Yale.
Pretty
Sorry.
impressive.
At Yale, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Client today, the younger citizen.
Yay!
And she was German Jew whose his parents were born in Dean, grandparents survived Auschwitz, and then they went back to Germany.
How long do we have to wait to get citizenship?
How long? This client is she's been living in Germany. She's married to a U.S. citizen.
Oh. That's not so easy.
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy.
Yay. You're one getting through. Any other good news? Yay. That's exciting. It's the fall. It's coming out, right? You have a date?
I'm about 2/3 of the way through that whole thing. Just go back.
My son got engaged.
Oh, Mazel tov.
My middle son, Samuel, Sam, I'm also Sam. Got engaged to Rosa. Yeah, Rosa Escandel, who is a teacher also in our school at Eaton. So that's big news. Yes, very exciting. All right, announcements. Right. So for all of our safety and our comfort, we're going to be holding services down here in our air-conditioned social hall when the temperature demands it. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Seth, for figuring out how not to leave our people in YouTube land out in the cold. So, hi. I wish we knew who we were. We know that Sue and Dave are out there, but we miss you. Sleep Code tomorrow night, 7:30, Havdalah, and then the documentary film, A Fumble Talk, which is about reconciliation after the bloody and horrific civil war in Sierra Leone. It's only a 52-minute documentary that's very powerful. We'll talk a little bit afterwards about the victims and perpetrators and how they were able to come together. And then, of course, followed up by the powerful and moving Sleep Code prayers upstairs, where we'll change over our mantles and Torah covers and curtains from blue to white. 4 days left to register for High Holy Days. Gotta get that done by the 31st online. Information on the website. You're gonna need to send in your vaccine documentation. If you feel more comfortable at home, we will lend you Machzorim, but the clock is ticking to reserve those as well. So make sure you reach out by email. Anybody who is coming on Rosh Hashanah, and even if you're not coming on Rosh Hashanah, please fill a grocery bag of food for our pantry. What we would like it filled with is on our website under the pantry. If you pick up a bag, it'll be stapled. We are going to fast, and we're going to fast voluntarily. But there are too many people that fast because they have to, because they just don't have food, because they're food insecure or they're homeless. So take at least the money that you would spend on food for yourself on that day, and please fill it with groceries. Bring it back on Yom Kippur. That's the deal. If you're parking and you're driving, you can download a parking tab on the website. It tells you the special places where that will be respected. The 19th after Yom Kippur, we're going to build and decorate the sukkah on that Sunday at 1, so please join us. That's always fun and it's outside. Enrollment is continuing, open enrollment for the religious school. If you're out there, please do that. And the rest of the grades. Yes? Any other news? Good and welfare, something we're leaving out? Yeah. And takes away.
Well, do you want to do that, or did you want to sing Achasha Alti because we skipped it?
We did. We need to sing Achasha Alti. Thank
It's 3:58 in your Siddur. 3:58.
you. Song amazing.
So I think that's a great closing for a day like today, rather than me too.
Only that do I see.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Larry, does that work?
I'm trying, it's not going.
Let me know if you can get it to work, because it would be really helpful. There's some masks that have like straw flaps, holes for straws and like a little flap. You ever see those? Yes, if there's a flap, it's still a good protective device.
Very good, Larry.
Yeah, Larry.
I baked
I know you're up all night.
You did?
it.
I'm gonna give you that. You want that? Who's in there? Whole Foods.
Oh, but it's not there.
They bring it in,
They bring it.
but they bring it a lot.
I might, but it's not definitely. Yeah, she will be. And it's a little late.
7:30.
There we go.
Let's have another one.
Because it'll be late. I mean, by the time we get done, it'll be 10:30. By the time I get home, it'll be 10:30. Not at home, but that's why I'm trying to push it over.